Let's talk about why you can't stop thinking about your ex. No matter how you try, it feels like your brain keeps coming back to them, right? The reason you're obsessed with your ex is because of your brain chemistry. Your brain is treating your ex like an addiction, and I really want to explain this. Your brain has been hijacked. Just like you can't reason with a drug addict, all your logical and rational thinking don't work. And I'm going to give you some tips, but first let me explain what's happening so you understand why you should use these tips. And this is based mostly on the work of biological anthropologist Helen Fisher, one of my big girl crushes. She and her colleagues have done a lot of work over the last 15 years on this issue. And when she and her team did brain scans, functional MRIs on people who'd just been dumped, and this also holds true if you're the one who broke up with your ex, with that person. Here's what they found. I'm going to do this really quick and get to tips. They found that the same regions in the brain that are lit up by intense romantic love are lit up for those who've been dumped or who break up with someone. Your brain's reward system, which is all about wanting, craving, focusing on something very specific, becomes even more active when you can't get what you want. When relationships end, the same mechanisms in our brain get activated as when addicts are withdrawing from substances like cocaine or opiates. I want that to sink in for a second. The other thing they found is that activity in the region of the brain associated with calculating gains and losses, which is called your nucleus accumbens, is also activated. When you think of the other person, your ex, you're literally calculating what you lost, what went wrong. This is when you start thinking, if I'd only tried this, if I hadn't said that, if I hadn't sent that text, all that. This is also the part of the brain that becomes active when you're willing to take enormous risks for a huge gain or loss. So you start creating conspiracy theories, right? And mysteries. You're digging, trying to figure out why. Why did it end? What did I do? What did they do? I've had a client recently who got told, by her ex, he said, I'm just not in love with you anymore. Like, that's my answer. And she was still searching for some kind of deeper meaning and what she could have done and what could have been different. But here's the deal. You're not really trying to solve some big mystery. You're actually trying to get your fix. That's the problem. And then the third thing I want to say before I give you tips is that they have also found, Fisher and her colleagues found activity in a region of the brain associated with deep attachment to another individual. So when you break up, even if, again, you're the one who left, you're feeling this deep attachment to your ex. So what do? I got 5 tips for you because you're really going to treat it like the addiction that it is, okay? First, you have to stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. After, sure, there's initial venting or catharsis, but after that, shut up. I say with love, stop talking about this person, because the more when you're thinking about your ex so much, every time you reminisce, every time you complain, every time you romanticize, you're creating these really strong emotions, and getting into this emotional or feeling states triggers all the same brain chemicals you had as when you first broke up. So you are re-traumatizing yourself constantly when you keep talking about it. Stop. If you're the best friend of someone who doesn't shut up about it, tell them, okay, that you're no longer going to listen, that you love them, and that's why they can't talk about it anymore. The second thing I want you to do is cut off contact, or at least limit seeing them as much as possible. So again, you don't want to shoot up or take a drink multiple times a day if you're trying to quit drugs, if you're trying to step away from your addiction and change your life. So if you've got kids together, you can still limit contact as much as possible. Exercise is a third great tip. I know, I wish it was sitting on your ass eating Oreos, because trust me, that's my favorite thing. But exercise can be a really huge help. There's great research on this. Remember, so much of this, as I just said, is neurochemical. So the endorphins and enkephalins that you get from exercise, as well as the balancing of your other neurotransmitters and hormones, is really needed when you're not getting past the hurt of a breakup or divorce. It's also a great way to start to create a new sense of self and fill the void that's left by your ex, which brings me to number 4 out of my 5 tips, which is you have to fill the void. So depending on how long you were with your ex, there were a lot of places where your lives, of course, intersected. And so you have to think about filling that void with something else. If the two of you always stayed at home on Saturday nights watching movies, don't stay at home alone on Saturday watching movies. So do something else. Fill the void with something else. Don't do the same things that you were doing. And then last, and I think I've talked about this in another video, is one of my favorite tools to give to clients is to make a list of why not. So this is not a list of why you hate the person or why they suck or why they don't deserve you or whatever. This is a list of the ways you don't match. Why not? Because they like to argue differently than I did. They had different preferences than I do. I have these preferences. They had those preferences. It's making a list of why not. Okay? It's, again, not a list of what you hate about them. So those are my tips, and those are the reasons why you're obsessed with your ex. So it's time to change.